as a buyer, can I get a discount from a house that is being sold by an estate? So this is really a question that was presented to me by a buyer, and I want to I want to break this down. As a seller, you need to know some of the mindsets and ideas that a buyer may have. So this is actually a real question that came to me today in an open house. And what I'll say is, I don't know about that. All I know is there's a lot of different dynamics that goes into every sale. And I did tell him, just because it's in an estate doesn't mean there, it hasn't been well taken care of. There hasn't been love and money and resources put into it. So, but keep that in mind that your hard-earned equity that maybe you've been here for 20 years, that you have in your home, that's your your last present you're going to pass on to your grandchildren or yourself, right? That's your final biggest asset. Maybe not. People are going to try and chip away at that. And that's why it's important to know what's going on in the market and to know what's selling, know what you're up against, know the three things that are really going to stand out with you and time on market. So time on market is 70 days on average on market in the villages right now. With Realty executives, our days have been less, so we've been at 58 days on market. But there's three things that can help you change that. So one is being very aggressive with your pricing. And when I say aggressive, meaning you're pricing it smart, you're pricing it better. You're not pricing it to give it away, but you know the comps, you know what your competition is selling for and has sold for. So you know your actives and your solds, or you're relying on yours truly or your trusted advisor to do this, but you should actively know, and that could change, right? So be very, very smart with, and don't be trying to put it way up here when you should be down here, right? Because you're only hurting yourself, you're giving yourself more time on market, and you're devaluing the sale. You're just making it worse. So, I mean, unless there's different strategies, unless you just want to play around and see what the market will support, but really go by the facts, go by the numbers. Now, maybe it's hard. Maybe you have a very niche home. It's a very unique home, and it's hard to really do the comps and compare it apples to apples. Then you're going to have to, go by different, you'll pull the stats, you'll pull those numbers, and you're going to have to see how the market responds. And maybe setting your price. Now you'll know if you set it too low because you're going to get bombarded with offers and probably bidding wars. And maybe you're fine with that. Maybe you're okay with not making the top dollar because you have owned it since day one and you did pay, a third of what it's going to go for now, and you're okay with that, right? But maybe that you're not. So there's different strategies, right? The second thing is you need to make it beautiful. You need to make it smell good, look good. And we're just not, we're talking about the cosmetics. We're talking about the prettiness of the home right now. And trust me, this goes a really, really long way. A home that is nicely staged and, cleaned and decluttered and depersonalized, it's going to go a long way. And maybe it's going to take a little bit of extra elbow work, extra grease work to do that. Maybe you need to hire someone to do your yard, get the shrubs all cleaned up, do the inside, paint the interior, make it pretty. Spending $4,000 or $5,000 might go a really long way to getting top dollar. The homes that don't look good and smell good, they're going to instantly, buyers are instantly going to think, what's wrong with this home? It's not cared for, it's not maintained. And the third thing is marketing, having a good marketing plan in place. It's not just throwing up a sign and saying, let's see what happens. It's a step-by-step procedure, and you can follow along as you go, right? So, okay, by week 2, where are we at? Did we hit as many showings as we want? Did we get as much traffic and feedback as we want? Why or why not? Let's analyze that, right? So having milestones and different pinpoints along the way, you actually have a game plan. You actually have a strategy. So I hope that this helps. I'll share this story with you because this is, I can share a bunch of stories, but I'll share one with you that really, really went a long way. Because this was a client of mine that had an older home. They'd been in their home for 14 years in the Villages. They came to me. They wanted to sell their home quickly. Their goal was to not have two homes. They already had their second one, up north, and they wanted to be done down here quickly. So we got it on market. We had them under contract. We were under contract in 30 days. Now, those 30 days, I'm not going to lie. And by the way, when I say 30 days on market, that means 30 days from the time we went on market till the time we got a contract. That's not closing. So you're going to have, your average closing might be 30 to 45 days. So it might take you 60 days total, like it did with them. So we put it on market and we looked at the data. They wanted to price it way up here. They said, 580 was their price. When I comped them, it was definitely in the low fours, upper fours, so 480, 490 to the low fives. We ended up getting 515, but they were way up here. So I had to bring them back in and I said, okay, we can price it wherever you want, but this is what the data is showing. And now it worked in their favor. They had a specialty home. They did have a pool home. So that was something we could play around with. They did not have updates, but they had nice features in their home. So their home was pretty much how it looked 14 years ago. But again, they maintained it. They put on a nice addition for their garage. There were some things that they did, but the interior was not, they still have popcorn ceilings, which is a big no-no, right? Which I always joke that you still can sell a home with popcorn ceilings. But they were a home that people were trying to take advantage of. People were trying to put in offers of 420, 430, 450 in the very beginning. So we had a lot of traffic. We had a lot of people come through. We had a lot of showings. And I set up, so I do this with my clients. I'll set up a market updates. Every Friday they can see what is on the market. If they are a pool home or they are a gardenia or whatever it is, they can see what their competition is. So my sellers were so amazing. They were plugging in every Friday, looking at what those other homes were on the market. Well, anytime there's a red flag or something that needs to come to their attention, again, I'll do this with my sellers, I'll bring that to their attention. So I brought to their attention, somebody listed their property for like way below market value. And so they had a tough choice, and they were already talking about lowering their price. Now I know that you don't want to lower your price. You set your price at a certain standard, and you don't want to chop it away. But it's also being ahead of the game. So they lowered their price. They knew that they could not compete against that other home. We lowered it to 530, and the offer that came in was 505. We settled at 515, which was actually above originally where I kind of figured, but we could justify it. It actually had an appraisal, and it appraised at value. So they did get the 515. They were sweating about it because they didn't know if it was going to go. And of course, I don't know, because the appraisal I gave the appraiser, if they're open to it, I'll give them my comps. So I asked the appraiser if she would like my comps, and she did use them. 2 weeks later, I had another appraiser call me and say, Joanie, I just want to know how that home made the appraisal, because she thought it was extremely high for that neighborhood. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, it was all Jesus. No, no. But it was, I said, well, these are the features that it had. It had a pool. It had Italian porcelain tile floors. It had this, right? So even though, yes, the Italian porcelain tile was not by today's standards, 2026, it still is an upgrade. So you still can count that as, an added feature. So you have to be very, very strategic, right? Had we sat on market and dug in our heels, and the sellers dug in their heels and said, nope, we're gonna die with this price. They can take it or leave it. And some sellers will say, you just bring me an offer. Well, no one, your buyer is not going to find you if you're way up here, right? So did we want to give it away? No. Did we want to make sure that they got every dollar that they could in that transaction? Absolutely. So there's ways to protect yourself as a seller in this market, and to know what's going to count as valuable, what your bragging points are, how we can highlight them, even if you aren't perfect. You don't have the popcorn removed, you don't have the LVP floor put in. There's still a way to get top dollar in this market. So I'd love to connect with you. Maybe you know someone who's thinking of selling and they're afraid of competing against all these new homes, right? Let's talk about how we can have your home shine and stand out and not be taken advantage of. And as a buyer, I get it, right? You're just looking for the best deal. When I'm representing a buyer, I'm always going to look for the best way to make my buyer happy and to not overpay, right? And to find something that is valuable to them. But as a seller, I'd love to give you some tips and show you how you really can strategize right now in this market and not sit for longer than average days, longer than 70 days on market. So thanks for watching. Have an amazing day, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.